So, imagine sitting on an examination table. You know, the paper is crinkling under you.
Yeah, we all know that sound.
Right. And the doctor leans down and presses firmly onto the tip of your big toe. The pink color instantly vanishes, and it leaves the skin this stark, ghostly white.
Just completely blanched.
Exactly. The doctor releases the pressure and starts counting. 1, 2. Now, in a healthy vascular system, that's like all it takes.
Yeah. Generally under 2 seconds.
Right, under 2 seconds, and the capillary beds flood back with oxygenated blood, and the pink color returns. But for the 73-year-old man featured in the clinical data we're looking at today, the doctor just kept counting.
That's never what you want.
No. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 agonizing seconds of absolute power before the blood finally managed to, struggle its way back into the extremities of his foot.
Which, in clinical terms, that delayed capillary refill time is just a massive red flag.
Right.
It indicates a severe breakdown in peripheral perfusion.
Yeah.
I mean, the tissue in his extremities was effectively starving.
And the physical toll of that starvation is just brutal. I mean, according to the source, his feet were constantly ice cold.
Mm-hmm.
He experienced this heavy, burning numbness so severe it would actually wake him up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, that's classic.
Just walking from his kitchen to the mailbox felt like he was dragging, physical iron weights strapped to his ankles.
That sensation of heaviness and burning pain, well, it's often referred to clinically as intermittent claudication.
Okay.
And it's the literal feeling of muscle cells switching over to anaerobic metabolism.
Oh, because there's no oxygen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they aren't receiving enough oxygen via the blood, they start producing lactic acid as a byproduct.
Ah, right.
And that lactic acid is what triggers those intense pain receptors in the legs.
Man. Now, here's the paradox that really drives this entire deep dive today. This man was not neglecting his health, at all.
Not at all.
He was throwing the entire arsenal of modern pharmacology at the problem. He was taking a daily cocktail of blood thinners, statins to manage his cholesterol, and these highly engineered vasodilators specifically designed to force his blood vessels open.
Yeah, heavy regimen.
We are talking about nearly $700 a month in chemical interventions, and yet his circulation was steadily, relentlessly declining.
In this scenario, it perfectly isolates a fundamental flaw in the standard clinical approach to vascular aging.
How so?
Well, the pharmaceutical stack you just mentioned, the vasodilators, the thinners, they basically manipulate the mechanics of the blood flow.
Okay.
They alter the pressure, they reduce the coagulability of the plasma, or they try to force a vessel to dilate. But they entirely bypass the underlying structural integrity of the vessels themselves.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I look at it through the lens of, municipal plumbing.
I like this analogy.
Right. So, if you have an underground water pipe that has spent 50 years accumulating heavy calcified rust, and the walls are brittle and, structurally compromised, you don't solve a low water pressure issue by bringing in a massive industrial pump and blasting water through at 10 times the pressure.
No, you definitely don't.
You don't chemically alter the water to make it thinner either. The pipe itself is still fundamentally ruined.
Exactly.
If anything, blasting high-pressure fluid through a brittle, rusted pipe is just a recipe for a catastrophic blowout.
That's a highly accurate mechanical equivalent, actually. In vascular biology, we spend so much time manipulating the fluid dynamics that we just ignore the physical pipe.
Right.
Our focus today is examining the profound biological shift required to actually repair those internal structures, the capillary beds and the arterial walls.
And we're talking about doing this using highly specific, naturally occurring plant compounds found in 5 common seeds. And if you are listening to this right now, pay close attention. Whether you were already experiencing that late-day leg fatigue, the cold toes, the subtle tingling, or maybe you are watching an aging parent slowly lose their mobility because their legs just won't support them anymore.
It's so common.
It is. This deep dive fundamentally reorients how we handle vascular senescence. We are moving away from forcing a broken system to work toward actually regenerating the cellular architecture of the vascular network.
But before we analyze the specific compounds within sunflower, sesame, chia, pumpkin, and flax seeds, we really have to establish the precise pathology of the deterioration.
What's actually going wrong first?
Right. We need to look at the cellular equivalent of that rust you mentioned.
Let's get into the pathology. Because the clinical data paints a picture of, honestly a microscopic war zone.
It really does.
It is not just the passive ticking of a biological clock. It's decades of cumulative aggressive damage to the inner walls of the artery.
We have to focus our attention on the endothelium.
Okay, what is that exactly?
Yeah. So this is a single cell thick membrane that lines the entire inner surface of the cardiovascular system.
Just one cell thick.
Just one. And every single millimeter of your blood vessels, from the massive aorta all the way down to the smallest capillary, is coated in these endothelial cells.
Wow.
And for decades, this incredibly delicate lining is bombarded by sheer mechanical stress.
Like from what?
Oh, hypertension, advanced glycation end products from high blood sugar, oxidized LDL particles, systemic inflammatory cytokines.
So it's essentially taking a physiological beating every single hour of your life.
Exactly. And the consequence of this relentless assault is endothelial dysfunction. The cells become damaged, they become senescent, the arteries lose their youthful elasticity.
They stiffen up.
Right. They undergo a process called arteriosclerosis where they physically stiffen.
Mm-hmm.
But even more critically for our 73-year-old patient, the microscopic capillary beds undergo a process called rarefaction.
Rarefaction. What does that mean?
They literally begin to shut down and prune away.
Wait, let me visualize this. So if we think of the vascular system as like a city's road network, the aorta and the major arteries are the multi-lane interstate highways.
Sure.
The pharmacology, the blood thinners and statins, they excel at keeping the interstates clear so traffic moves fast.
Right.
But the capillaries are the tiny, twisting neighborhood streets. They're the only roads that actually lead to the driveways of the individual cells in your toes.
That is the exact anatomical relationship.
Okay.
The major arteries only transport the blood. The capillaries are where the actual exchange of oxygen and nutrients occurs.
So if those local roads are completely crumbled, filled with potholes, or like physically blockaded due to this rare action process, it's utterly irrelevant how fast the blood is moving on the highway.
Doesn't matter at all.
The oxygen simply cannot be delivered to the tissue. The cells just suffocate.
Precisely. And furthermore, a damaged endothelium drastically downregulates its production of a vital signaling gas called nitric oxide.
Nitric oxide.
Yes. It's the master regulator of vasodilation. It is the chemical messenger that tells the smooth muscle surrounding the artery to relax and open up.
Ah.
So when the endothelium is scarred and dysfunctional, nitric oxide production just plummets, and the blood vessels become locked in a state of chronic constriction.
But let me challenge the core premise here for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
If I look at the inevitability of human aging, isn't this just the cost of doing business? Like, if we live to be 80, are we not just destined for crumbled neighborhood roads and a depleted nitric oxide supply?
It's common thought.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
if my cardiologist prescribes a highly engineered $700 a month pharmaceutical regimen to manage this, why on earth should I believe that the trajectory can be reversed by, things I can buy in the bulk aisle of a grocery store?
It sounds crazy, I know.
Are we really equating snack food to pharmaceutical intervention?
It is a vital skepticism to have, but it relies on a fundamental misunderstanding of what pharmaceuticals actually do.
Okay, explain that.
Pharmaceuticals generally block, inhibit, or artificially stimulate specific receptors to manage symptoms.
Right.
They do not provide the raw biological substrates required for cellular regeneration.
Oh, I see.
The clinical literature demonstrates definitively that severe vascular decline, the kind causing a 7-second refill time, is largely driven by cumulative oxidative stress and profound, decades-long nutrient deficiencies.
Starvation, basically.
Exactly. If you provide the body with the exact molecular cofactors it requires to rebuild the endothelial lining and neutralize the oxidative environment, the tissue can and will regenerate, regardless of chronological age.
Okay, let's test that theory. If the goal is reversing the trajectory, our first objective has to be stopping the ongoing assault, right?
Yes, step one.
We need to shield that delicate single-cell lining from further destruction so it actually has a chance to rebuild. And that brings us to the first intervention in the clinical data, sunflower seeds.
Right, and the perception of sunflower seeds is almost entirely disconnected from their clinical utility.
Yeah, people view them as like a mindless snack for a road trip or a baseball game.
Exactly. But biochemically, they deliver a highly targeted intervention for peripheral vascular decline.
Really?
Yes, primarily due to their dense concentration of alpha-tocopherol, which is the most biologically active form of vitamin E.
Okay, Let's break down the mechanics of alpha tocopherol because the literature heavily emphasizes its role in mitigating oxidative stress.
It does.
And oxidative stress is the silent biological wear and tear we were just discussing. It's the rust.
Exactly. To understand the rust, we really have to look at free radicals.
Okay, what are they?
These are highly reactive molecules that are missing an electron.
Like chemically unstable.
Very unstable. Because they are unstable, they tear through the bloodstream, violently ripping electrons away from the healthy cells of the endothelial lining.
Ouch.
Yeah, this process is called lipid peroxidation, and it literally damages the cell membranes, triggers inflammation, and causes the arterial walls to become rigid and scarred.
So the free radicals are like microscopic shrapnel shredding the interior of the blood vessel.
Great way to put it.
Where does the vitamin E come in then?
So vitamin E is a unique fat-soluble antioxidant. It actually embeds itself directly into the lipid bilayer of the cell membrane.
Right into the wall itself.
Exactly. And it acts as an electron donor. When a free radical attacks, the vitamin E molecule intercepts it and says, "Here, take my electron."
Wow.
It neutralizes the threat before it can damage the structural integrity of the cell.
But wait, if vitamin E loses an electron, doesn't it become a free radical itself?
That's the amazing part. Remarkably, when vitamin E loses that electron, it doesn't become dangerous. It remains stable until it can be recharged by other antioxidants like vitamin C.
It's an internal self-replenishing armor system for the blood vessels.
That is exactly what it is.
By neutralizing that shrapnel, it prevents the physical stiffening of the arteries, allowing them to maintain the flexibility required to pulse blood down into the lower body. But the data on sunflower seeds highlights a secondary mechanism that works in tandem with the vitamin E shield, and it involves the mineral magnesium.
Yes, a crucial mineral.
And this is where we transition from protecting the structure to actively managing the tension.
Right. Magnesium is a fundamental biological regulator of vascular tone.
Okay.
While the vitamin E prevents the walls from degrading, magnesium controls the smooth muscle layer that wraps around those walls.
Right, the smooth muscle.
Yeah.
So if we zoom in on the arterial wall, we have the endothelium on the inside. And then wrapped around that is a layer of muscle that can constrict or dilate.
Correct.
How exactly does magnesium interface with that muscle?
It operates primarily as a natural calcium channel blocker.
Oh, like the blood pressure medication?
Exactly like that, but natural. In order for a muscle fiber to contract, calcium ions must flood into the cell.
Okay.
This is true for your bicep, and it is true for the smooth muscle wrapping your arteries. When calcium enters, the artery squeezes tight, narrowing the pathway and increasing resistance.
Making it harder for blood to flow.
Yes. Magnesium sits at the cellular gates and physically competes with calcium. It regulates the flow, ensuring that the muscle doesn't become locked in a state of hypercontraction.
So basically prevents the biological equivalent of a relentless vascular cramp.
Precisely. It pushes the calcium out of the intracellular space, forcing the smooth muscle to relax.
Wow.
And when that tension releases, the internal diameter of the blood vessel expands, and blood can finally flow with less resistance down into the capillary beds of the legs.
But the clinical data points to a massive silent epidemic that makes this process fail. It notes that a staggering percentage of older adults are operating with severe intracellular magnesium depletion.
It's a huge problem. The depletion is systemic and, honestly, multifactorial.
Why is it so common?
Well, first you have the degradation of modern agricultural soils.
Ah, right.
The crops simply do not absorb the same mineral density they did 70 years ago.
Makes sense.
Second, as humans age, gastric acid production naturally declines. This is called hypochlorhydria, low stomach acid. And it makes it exceedingly difficult to ionize and absorb minerals from food.
So our internal extraction machinery just wears down.
Exactly. And third, we return to the pharmaceuticals.
Oh.
Many of the most commonly prescribed drugs for cardiovascular issues, specifically loop and thiazide diuretics used to lower blood pressure, actively force the kidneys to excrete massive amounts of magnesium into the urine.
What a catastrophic paradox.
It really is.
You have a patient suffering from cold, heavy legs due to constricted blood vessels. They are prescribed a diuretic to lower their systemic blood pressure, which systematically drains their body of the exact biological mineral magnesium required to actually relax those blood vessels at the cellular level.
Yeah.
They are chasing a symptom while accelerating the underlying dysfunction.
It is a devastating biofeedback loop. And it is exactly why reintroducing bioavailable magnesium via food matrices like sunflower seeds is so critical.
Now, the literature does offer a specific preparatory caveat for this, which I found totally fascinating.
Oh, the soaking.
Yeah, it suggests soaking the sunflower seeds overnight before consuming them. Why does submerging a seed in water alter its clinical efficacy? I mean, it's just water.
It comes down to a compound called phytic acid, or inositol hexaphosphate.
Okay.
Seeds use phytic acid to lock away minerals, keeping the seed dormant until it is in the ground and ready to sprout.
Like a biological vault.
Exactly. But in the human digestive tract, phytic acid acts as an anti-nutrient. It binds tightly to cations like magnesium, zinc, and iron, rendering them completely unabsorbable.
So you could eat a pound of raw seeds and derive almost zero mineral benefit because it's all locked up?
Precisely. However, soaking the seeds in water simulates the environmental trigger for germination.
Oh, it thinks it's been planted.
Right. It activates an intrinsic enzyme within the seed called phytase, which actively breaks down the phytic acid. The vault unlocks, releasing the magnesium into a highly bioavailable state that an aging digestive tract can easily absorb.
We are essentially hacking the seed's evolutionary biology to maximize vascular repair.
Pretty much.
A handful of soaked, raw, unsalted sunflower seeds provides the vitamin E armor and the magnesium tension release. But if we assume decades of damage, merely shielding the vessels moving forward isn't enough, right? We have to clear out the existing damage. We have to address the chronic, smoldering inflammation that has already narrowed the pathways.
Exactly.
And this brings us to the next intervention, the sesame seed.
Sesame seeds are perhaps the most frequently overlooked therapeutic compound in the modern diet. They are largely relegated to a garnish on a bun.
Yeah, totally.
But the biochemical profile of a sesame seed contains a potent class of plant lignans, most notably a compound called sesamin.
The clinical data heavily focuses on sesamin's ability to modulate inflammation. So let's dig into the mechanics of that.
Okay.
If oxidative stress from free radicals is the initial spark that damages the artery, the inflammation is the resulting fire that slowly burns for decades, right?
Yes.
Causing the artery walls to swell and thicken inward, restricting the flow. How does sesamin put out that fire?
Well, sesamin operates by down-regulating the expression of pro-inflammatory cytokines at the genetic level.
Wow, genetic level.
Yeah. When you consume sesamin, your gut microbiota metabolizes it into enterolactones.
Enterolactones.
Right. These enterolactones circulate in the plasma and actually inhibit inflammatory pathways like NF-kappa B inside the endothelial cells.
So it's sending a message.
It essentially sends a chemical signal telling the immune system to stand down, stopping the localized swelling within the vessel walls.
So it's acting as a biological rust remover, clearing out the inflammatory swelling that is choking off the blood supply to the lower extremities.
Exactly.
But the literature brings up another nutrient in sesame seeds that seems entirely counterintuitive for human biology: copper.
Ah, yes. Copper.
I mean, when I think of copper, I envision metal wiring or physical plumbing pipes in a house. How does a trace metal transition into a functional component of a biological human artery?
It is a brilliant question because the nomenclature really makes it sound industrial. Human blood vessels obviously are not metallic, but they rely heavily on structural scaffolding.
Okay.
The walls of your arteries must constantly expand to accommodate the pulse of blood from the heart and then immediately snap back into shape.
Like a rubber band.
Right. And that elasticity is provided by a dense matrix of two primary proteins: collagen, which provides tensile strength, and elastin, which provides the stretch.
So collagen for the structure, elastin for the snap.
Exactly. But those proteins don't just float around randomly. They must be woven tightly together into a functional matrix.
Okay.
This weaving process is called cross-linking, and it is entirely dependent on a specific enzyme called lysyl oxidase.
And let me guess, lysyl oxidase requires copper to function.
You got it. Copper is the essential catalytic cofactor for lysyl oxidase.
Wow.
Without sufficient copper circulating in the system, lysyl oxidase cannot perform the oxidative deamination required to bind the collagen and elastin fibers together. The cross-linking fails.
And what?
The structural scaffolding of the blood vessel becomes flimsy, it's prone to microtears, and it loses its elastic recoil.
So a copper deficiency quite literally causes the blood vessels to become saggy and weak.
That's exactly what happened.
They lose the mechanical tension required to continuously propel the blood down the legs and back up against the force of gravity.
Precisely. The structural integrity of the entire vascular network relies on trace amounts of copper to maintain that protein matrix.
The recommended application here is utilizing tahini, which is a paste made from mechanically ground, lightly toasted sesame seeds.
Highly recommend tahini.
And this makes perfect sense based on what we just discussed about phytic acid in seed hulls. Grinding the seed mechanically shatters the fibrous outer shell, exposing the sesamin and the copper directly to the digestive enzymes, bypassing the need for a highly robust gastric acid response.
Right. It maximizes the bioavailability of the lignans and the trace minerals, ensuring they actually reach the systemic circulation.
Okay, let's synthesize our progress.
Good idea.
We have utilized the alpha-tocopherol in sunflower seeds to shield the endothelium from free radical damage and the magnesium to relax the smooth muscle. We have introduced the sesamin and copper from sesame seeds to extinguish the chronic inflammation and rebuild the physical collagen-elastin scaffolding of the pipe itself. We have repaired the container.
Structural integrity of the vessel wall has been addressed, yes.
But the container is only half the equation.
True.
We must now turn our attention to the physical properties of the fluid being pumped through that container. We are moving from vascular architecture to fluid dynamics, and this is where the data introduces chia seeds.
This represents a critical pivot in cardiovascular physiology.
How so?
Well, you can have a perfectly reconstructed, highly elastic blood vessel, but if the fluid you are attempting to pump through it is highly viscous, resistant to flow, and laden with rigid cellular structures, peripheral perfusion will still fail.
The blood itself has to be right.
Right. Chia seeds offer a profound intervention into the hemodynamics of the blood itself, primarily through their massive concentration of alpha-linolenic acid, which is a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The mechanics of how this omega-3 interacts with human red blood cells is easily one of the most fascinating physiological processes in this entire data set.
It really is incredible.
Let's zoom back in on those microscopic capillary beds, the neighborhood roads we discussed earlier. The physical dimensions here present a staggering biological challenge.
They do. Just to give you an idea, the average human red blood cell, the erythrocyte, which actually carries the oxygen payload, has a diameter of roughly 8 microns.
8 microns, and the internal diameter of the capillary it has to travel through?
It can be as narrow as 5 microns.
Wait, what? So we have an 8-micron cell that must physically force its way through a 5-micron tube. The payload is larger than the delivery tunnel.
Exactly. Which means the red blood cell must possess an extraordinary degree of deformability.
Deformability.
Yeah, it has to fold, bend, and twist itself like a biological acrobat to squeeze through the capillary bed, deliver the oxygen to the muscle tissue, and exit back into the venous system.
And the data indicates that as we age and as we accumulate oxidative damage, those red blood cells lose their flexibility.
Unfortunately, yes.
They become stiff and rigid.
The lipid membrane of the red blood cell becomes saturated and inflexible. When these rigid cells attempt to enter the 5-micron capillary, they literally get stuck.
Oh, no.
They create microscopic traffic jams, blood flow stalls, oxygen delivery plummets, and the surrounding tissue immediately begins to experience that heavy burning claudication.
My analogy for this: it is the mechanical equivalent of trying to force a rigid, solid golf ball through a rubber garden hose.
Perfect analogy.
It will lodge itself in the tube, bulge the walls, and stop the flow entirely. So how does the alpha-linolenic acid in the chia seed resolve this physical bottleneck?
Well, when you consume chia seeds, the omega-3 fatty acids are metabolized and directly incorporated into the phospholipid bilayer, the outer membrane of your red blood cells.
Okay.
Omega-3s are polyunsaturated, meaning their molecular structure contains multiple double bonds that create physical kinks in the fatty acid chain.
Kinks.
Yeah, bends. When these highly kinked, flexible molecules integrate into the cell membrane, they space the molecules apart, drastically increasing the fluidity and the physical pliability of the entire cell.
They transform the red blood cell from a rigid golf ball back into a squishy water balloon.
That is a highly accurate biophysical representation. The erythrocyte regained its deformability index, allowing it to seamlessly fold and slip through the narrowest capillary networks without bottlenecking.
That is profound. We are fundamentally altering the physical malleability of individual cells in the bloodstream through dietary lipid modification.
It's pretty amazing.
But chia seeds also impact the plasma, the liquid portion of the blood. The literature highlights a flavonoid called quercetin.
Yes. Quercetin exerts a powerful regulatory effect on platelet aggregation.
Platelets, those are for clotting, right?
Right. Platelets are the cellular fragments responsible for clotting. In a healthy system, they only clump together when there is an endothelial rupture that needs sealing.
Like a cut.
Exactly. However, In an aging system riddled with chronic inflammation and oxidative stress, platelets become hyperactive. They undergo spontaneous aggregation, clumping together in the bloodstream even when there is no injury.
Which artificially thickens the blood, turning it into a sticky sludge that requires immense cardiac force to pump down into the legs.
Exactly. Quercetin acts on specific biochemical pathways to inhibit the synthesis of thromboxane A2, a lipid that heavily promotes platelet clumping.
Okay.
By suppressing this pathway, quercetin acts as a natural, mild antiplatelet agent, maintaining the smooth, laminar flow of the blood and preventing the microscopic clumping that increases vascular resistance.
And the preparation method for chia seeds introduces a third hemodynamic benefit: systemic hydration. The data is emphatic about this point. You must never consume dry chia seeds.
Never.
Because of their dense concentration of soluble mucilaginous fiber, they are incredibly hydrophilic. If you swallow them dry, they will aggressively absorb moisture in your esophagus or stomach, potentially causing a dangerous impaction.
Right, they must be prehydrated. When soaked in water for 15 to 20 minutes, that soluble fiber expands and creates a thick, viscous gel, holding up to 12 times its weight in water.
Why does consuming this hydrated gel specifically benefit the cardiovascular hemodynamics we've been discussing? I mean, we all know dehydration is bad, but mechanistically, what is happening in the blood?
Human blood plasma is approximately 90% water. As individuals age, their hypothalamic thirst mechanism degrades.
So they don't feel thirsty.
Right, they simply do not feel thirsty even when clinically dehydrated. When systemic hydration drops, the plasma volume shrinks. The same amount of red blood cells and proteins are now suspended in less fluid. The blood becomes hyperconcentrated and highly viscous. It is like trying to pump wet cement through the vascular system.
Yikes.
Consuming a hydrated chia gel introduces a slow-release source of hydration into the gastrointestinal tract, which steadily maintains optimal plasma volume throughout the day, ensuring the blood remains thin and fluid.
So, to review our physiological progress so far,
Let's do it.
the sunflower and sesame seeds have repaired the endothelial walls and restored the elastic scaffolding.
Yes.
The chia seeds have altered the lipid bilayer of the red blood cells, making them flexible enough to pass through the capillaries, while the quercetin and hydration ensure the blood itself flows smoothly. We have a pristine physical pipe and a perfectly optimized fluid.
But the system is still largely static.
What do you mean?
Well, we have removed the impediments to flow, but we must now reawaken the dynamic control mechanisms of the vascular network.
Ah, exactly. We need the ability to actively command the vessels to dilate when the legs require more oxygen. We need to reignite the biological engine that controls expansion.
Yes.
And that leads us to the fourth intervention: pumpkin seeds.
Which brings us back to the master signaling molecule we identified at the very beginning of our clinical analysis, nitric oxide.
The gas produced by the endothelium that commands the smooth muscle to relax. We established earlier that in a 73-year-old vascular system, the production of this gas has severely diminished, leaving the vessels locked in constriction. How do pumpkin seeds restart this cellular factory?
They provide a massive, highly bioavailable dose of the precise molecular substrates the endothelium requires to manufacture the gas.
Which is?
Specifically, they're incredibly rich in an amino acid called L-arginine.
Let's trace the metabolic pathway. I consume the pumpkin seeds, the L-arginine enters my bloodstream, and it reaches the endothelial cells. What happens inside the cell?
The endothelial cell contains a highly specialized enzyme called endothelial nitric oxide synthase, or ENOS.
Okay, you know.
Think of ENOS as the cellular machinery. The ENOS enzyme takes the L-arginine molecule, strips away a nitrogen atom, combines it with oxygen, and synthesizes nitric oxide gas.
Just like that.
Yep. This gas is highly permeable. It immediately diffuses out of the endothelium and directly into the adjacent smooth muscle cells.
And what does the gas do once it's inside the muscle?
It binds to and activates another enzyme called guanylyl cyclase, which initiates a cascade that ultimately rapidly decreases intracellular calcium levels.
Oh, back to calcium.
Right. As we established during our magnesium discussion, when calcium drops, the muscle fibers physically relax. The blood vessel instantly dilates, opening the floodgates for oxygenated blood to rush into the lower extremities.
So the L-arginine isn't a stimulant. It isn't an artificial drug forcing the vessel open. It is literally the raw biological building block the body uses to construct the relaxing gas.
Exactly.
But the clinical data specifies that L-arginine cannot operate efficiently in a vacuum. It highlights the role of zinc, which is also found in high concentrations in pumpkin seeds.
The synergy here is vital. The ENOS enzyme, the machinery that processes the L-arginine, is structurally a dimer.
What's a dimer?
It means it consists of two identical halves that must be bound together to function. Zinc is the structural linchpin that holds those two halves together.
What happens if the body is deficient in zinc and the linchpin is missing?
The consequences are disastrous. The ENOS enzyme physically uncouples, it breaks apart.
Oh, no.
And when uncoupled ENOS attempts to process L-arginine, it misfires. Instead of producing the relaxing nitric oxide gas, it produces superoxide, a highly destructive free radical.
Wait. So if you lack zinc, the very cellular factory designed to relax your blood vessels actually turns toxic and starts blasting the arterial walls with oxidative shrapnel.
Precisely. This is known as ENOS uncoupling, and it is a major driver of vascular pathology in the elderly.
Wow.
The high zinc content in pumpkin seeds ensures the ENOS dimer remains securely coupled, guaranteeing that the L-arginine is successfully converted into the therapeutic gas rather than a destructive free radical.
That is a stunning level of biological interconnectivity. The seed provides both the fuel for the factory and the structural reinforcement for the machinery itself.
Nature's pretty clever.
And there is one more mechanical relationship regarding pumpkin seeds that the data emphasizes. It involves potassium and its relationship with sodium, which heavily dictates systemic blood pressure.
Right. Potassium and sodium operate a delicate, high-stakes balance at the cellular level, particularly regarding the sodium-potassium pump in the cell membranes.
Let's contextualize this for the modern patient. Standard Western diets are aggressively skewed toward massive sodium intake and abysmal potassium intake.
Oh, absolutely.
What does that imbalance physically do to the cardiovascular system?
Well, excessive sodium accumulates in the extracellular fluid, drawing massive amounts of water with it due to osmotic pressure.
Okay.
This artificially inflates the total blood volume, creating immense hydrostatic pressure against the arterial wall's hypertension.
Like a water balloon about to burst.
Exactly. And simultaneously, high sodium actually makes the smooth muscle cells more sensitive to constricting signals.
So you have a higher volume of fluid smashing against walls that are squeezing tighter. It's a literal pressure cooker.
Exactly. Potassium acts as the biological pressure release valve. First, it signals the kidneys to actively excrete the excess sodium into the urine, pulling the excess water out of the vascular system and dropping the overall volume.
Lowering the pressure.
Right. Second, potassium interacts with the endothelial cells to cause hyperpolarization, which is an electrical shift that makes it physically harder for the smooth muscle to contract.
It fundamentally rewires the electrical tension of the artery. So by utilizing pumpkin seeds, we are providing the L-arginine and zinc to actively dilate the vessels, while utilizing the potassium to vent the underlying hydrostatic pressure.
It is a comprehensive modulation of vascular tone.
Which brings us to the culmination of the clinical data. We arrive at the final intervention. The literature isolates this specific seed as providing arguably the most profound, multifaceted hemodynamic and structural benefits of any natural compound studied.
The big one?
It synthesizes all the mechanisms we have explored into a single, highly potent matrix. We are looking at flax seeds.
Flax seeds are the apex intervention for vascular senescence.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They do not simply address one isolated pathway. They unleash a concurrent, highly synergistic assault on multiple vectors of endothelial dysfunction. They are the ultimate biological multi-tool.
The literature defines this as a triple threat. Massive concentrations of omega-3 ALA, highly fermentable viscous fiber, and a uniquely powerful class of phytoestrogens called lignans. Now, we have discussed how omega-3s improve red blood cell deformability, but I want to intensely focus on these lignans. What exactly is the primary lignan in flax, and how does it interface with the degraded vascular system?
The primary lignan is secoisolarceresinol diglucoside.
Wow, say that 10 times fast.
I know, right? It's commonly abbreviated as SDG.
Okay, SDG?
Flax seeds contain hundreds of times more SDG than any other plant source on Earth.
Hundreds?
Yes. SDG is an incredibly potent antioxidant, but it operates with a highly specific affinity for the cardiovascular system. It aggressively targets and neutralizes lipid peroxidation, the exact mechanism by which oxidized LDL cholesterol damages the endothelial lining.
So it acts as a heavy-duty, targeted shield against the specific type of rust that causes arterial plaques.
Yeah, sure.
But the data highlights another critical function of flax that I want to dissect. It notes a profound improvement in blood viscosity.
Right.
Now, viscosity refers to the sheer resistance of a fluid, how thick and sticky it is. We talked about how dehydration thickens the plasma, but how do the lignans and the specific ALA in flax alter the actual molecular stickiness of the blood?
It alters the concentration of specific proteins in the plasma, most notably fibrinogen.
Fibrinogen.
Yes, fibrinogen is a glycoprotein produced by the liver that circulates in the blood, and it is a major determinant of blood viscosity.
Yeah.
In states of chronic inflammation, fibrinogen levels skyrocket. It acts like a biological glue, increasing the sheer stress required to keep the blood moving. High fibrinogen means the heart is struggling against massive fluid resistance, and the blood pools heavily in the venous system of the legs.
It literally turns the blood into a thick, sludgy syrup.
Precisely. The combined action of the SDG lignans and the omega-3 ALA in flax heavily downregulates the hepatic production of fibrinogen.
It turns off the glue factory.
Essentially, yes. By
Okay.
clearing this biological glue out of the plasma, the shear resistance plummets, the viscosity drops. The blood regains the rheological properties of water, allowing it to flow rapidly and effortlessly through the newly repaired capillary networks.
And this is perhaps the single most critical practical mandate in the entire clinical data set. If you consume flax seeds incorrectly, you achieve absolutely zero biochemical benefit.
None.
The literature explicitly warns against consuming whole, intact flax seeds.
It is a complete waste of therapeutic potential. The outer hull of the flaxseed is composed of highly dense, heavily cross-linked cellulose and lignin.
Okay.
The human gastrointestinal tract entirely lacks the cellulase enzymes required to break this matrix down.
So if you swallow a tablespoon of whole flax seeds, they travel through the entirety of your digestive system completely unscathed.
Pretty much.
The lignans, the omega-3s, the fiber, all of it remains locked inside an impenetrable vault and is eliminated from the body with zero absorption.
Yep.
You are ingesting the world's most potent vascular compound and deriving the nutritional equivalent of swallowing a tiny pebble.
Exactly. Mechanical pulverization is an absolute requirement. The seeds must be ground into a fine meal to shatter that hull and expose the internal matrix to digestive enzymes.
And the data specifies grinding them fresh. You don't want to buy a bag of pre-ground flax meal that has been sitting on a supermarket shelf for 6 months.
No, absolutely not. Because the moment you shatter the hull, the highly volatile polyunsaturated omega-3 fatty acids are exposed to oxygen and light.
Oh.
They begin to rapidly oxidize and go rancid. To preserve the molecular integrity of the lipids, you must store the whole seeds in a cool, dark place and use a simple coffee grinder to mill only the exact amount you intend to consume immediately.
Fresh grinding unlocks the vault without spoiling the treasure. It is a simple, non-negotiable step to accessing the triple threat.
And it perfectly encapsulates the overarching reality of utilizing these specific interventions. Efficacy demands precision, but it also demands incredible consistency.
As we step back and view this clinical data in its entirety, that concept of consistency is the ultimate takeaway. We are not discussing an acute pharmaceutical intervention.
No, we're not.
If you are experiencing the cold feet, the 7-second refill times, the claudication, consuming a single bowl of chia gel and ground flax will not resolve decades of structural degradation by Tuesday.
Endothelial regeneration is a profoundly complex biological undertaking. The body must synthesize new collagen, clear out years of oxidized lipids, replenish intracellular magnesium stores, and literally grow new capillary networks, a process called angiogenesis.
It's a massive construction project.
Exactly. You are providing the metabolic blueprints and the raw materials, but the construction crew requires time.
It requires months of daily, relentless biological support. But the implications of that support are staggering. We began this analysis by looking at the despair of a 73-year-old man struggling to walk to his mailbox, trapped in a paradigm that viewed his vascular decline as an inescapable consequence of the calendar.
The clinical data completely shatters that paradigm. It proves that the cellular machinery, the ENOS enzymes, the lysyl oxidase, the sheer regenerative capacity of the endothelium, does not simply die of old age.
It doesn't.
No, it starves. It suffocates under the weight of oxidative stress and systemic mineral depletion.
Which leaves us with a truly radical shift in perspective. We have been conditioned to view aging as a one-way street of inevitable mechanical breakdown. We accept the loss of mobility, the heavy legs, the cold extremities as the final, unalterable contract of growing older.
We really do.
But when you examine the exact biochemical pathways we mapped out today, when you realize that an 80-year-old blood vessel will rapidly construct new, relaxing gas the moment you hand it a molecule of L-arginine and a zinc linchpin, you have to ask yourself a deeply provocative question.
And what's that?
How much of the debilitating physical decline we accept as normal aging is not senescence at all, but rather the cumulative result of a very long, very reversible cellular starvation? The pipes aren't destined to rust, they just desperately need the right maintenance.
It is a fundamental redefinition of our biological potential.
And it puts the power of regeneration squarely back in your hands. Keep analyzing the pathways, keep demanding the molecular truth, and keep diving deep.